Hey y'all, and welcome to the Max Life. It is afternoon, it is already dark outside, and I'm gonna be preparing supper and chit chat with you guys while I do so, because I was actually just asked a really important question that I feel like maybe I can give some tips on. I have shared bits and pieces with this really with you guys in the past, but to bring it back up and address it again because it is definitely a good conversation. So as you can see, I have started us some lady peas right from our garden and corn right from our garden. Now it's time to light the grill. I have some chicken breast that I'm gonna be cutting up into tenders and throwing on the grill while we talk. So here's the question that was presented. Tell me about your pantry staples and stock, how much you like to keep on hand to feed your family for what amount of time. And then they tell me we have had to use a large portion of our stock for the last 2 years, and it's time to start putting big bulk items back as we watch the unrest in our nation with groceries at an all-time high. I'm working really hard to stay on a budget, still feed the family 3 meals a day plus snacks, and put up items on the pantry shelf. So a couple of things I want to address there. So that's the question that was presented, and I want to address a couple of things and then we're going to jump right into it. First, we all know that we're living in really crazy and chaotic times right now. I feel like that probably more than just that person feels the need to have extra items on hand just because we don't know what's around the corner. Not that I feel like people are saying, oh, I'm gonna live in fear, I'm gonna go out and do this and this, and that's not what it's about, y'all. Just because people have extra things on hand does not mean they live in fear. I say it's being wise. If you know a hurricane is coming, obviously what us people down here in the hurricane zones do, we go get gas, we get food, we get water, you know, all of those things, extra propane for the grills or whatnot. We have those things on hand because we very well know we could lose power, we could have damage to our buildings, we may not be able to have immediate access to grocery stores or whatever, okay? Katrina was probably worse in our area. I mean, even though we're a couple of hours north of the coast, about 2.5 hours north from our coast, y'all, we had so many tornadoes with so many trees down. I actually have family that was without power for 2 weeks during that, so we first-handedly know how it can be. And we've all learned from that and realized that having things on hand, of course, preparing for times that you know is going to be tough, is a wise decision. Now, with all that being said, all of the unrest, all the things that we see and going on in our nation, from day to day, we know that just like that, something bad could happen and the majority of the population is gonna panic. We don't want to be those people that panic, and I feel like the majority of you don't want to be those people that panic either. So having things on hand is a wise decision. Now, you can't just have a year's worth or 6 month worth of supply on hand overnight. It just doesn't work like that. Unless you're just very, very financially strong. Most people just can't do that, us being included. We don't have, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 worth we could just go out and buy all of that just to put up. So I have kind of talked to y'all about this some in the past. These are some of my suggestions, especially if you live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people have said, oh, well, we can't buy anything extra. Guys, there are implements that you can put in place. There are things that you can put in place to save a couple of pennies here and there. The first is don't buy new. We don't buy new. We could afford to buy new, but we choose not to buy new. If it's a car or whatever, find good used items. Consignment shopping, yard selling, you can find stuff that is literally brand new in the box for 1/10 of the price that you would pay at a store. Sometimes it might just take a little extra work, searching around a little bit more to find what you need. If you shop on places like Facebook Marketplace, just be very, very careful not to get scammed, because I do know some people that have gotten scammed on places like Facebook Marketplace. So you have to be wise in what you're doing, but secondhand shopping is just one way. Y'all, quit the eating out. The cost of food is already through the roof, and when you're paying somebody to buy your food, cook your food, serve you your food, that right there is a threefold increase on your food. Stop eating out, and every bit that you save from not eating out, put back in an envelope. Also, this does not happen overnight. It takes time to build this up, time and money. So there are some practical ways, a couple of practical ways. Say you need a new book, or say you need a book new to you. Don't go buy a new book. Go to a thrift bookstore. You can oftentimes find the very book that you're looking for a couple of dollars. That will save you money in the long run. So there are some practical ways. Selling things on the side, whether you bake, you paint, you sing, use your God-given talents to help bring in a little bit of extra income. Is it a little bit of extra work? Absolutely. But it's going to benefit your family in the long run. So again, there are just some practical ways to build up a little bit of extra money through the weeks, so that when you make a trip to the grocery store and you have an extra 30 or 45 or 50 or $100 that you put back, you can take that money when you make your trip to the store, buy a couple of extra bags of flour, buy a couple of extra bottles of olive oil or whatever you use, buy a couple of extra containers of butter, whatever that looks like, whether it's new jars you need for canning, whatever that looks like for you, whatever your family eats the most, buy that first. And with each trip, you're going to notice a major difference in building up your supply. Like I said, it does not happen overnight. It is one of those things where with each trip, or with each time you maybe place an order, we use Azure for example, or you go to your local grocery store, with each visit, buy 1 or 2 extra items and put those up specifically to have on hand. Now, so there are a couple of tips for y'all, but to jump right into the question, ideally, it is wise to have at least an extra year's worth of supply on hand. Now, that is not unrealistic. I know for my family and several other families that have achieved that goal. It does not happen overnight, like I just told y'all. But you can start the process now. It is not too late. Every little bit helps, and it does add up. You're gonna look back in a couple of months and say, wow, look at all the extra things because I bought 1 or 2 things extra that I've been able to take and put back. It is not going to make or break you. Cut out the junk that you don't need. Save the $5 of buying a pack of Oreo and buy a sack of flour, dried beans, rice, oatmeal. Take out some of the junk and invest in things that you may need in the future. So what would that look like for me? Water is priority. Water storage, ways to clean water. We've made tons of videos on water and all of those things that I just listed. You guys can go over to Colby's channel, The Mac. He has tons of different videos with given specifics, with specific links, you know, all the things. But water would be first and foremost. Then I would start looking at things like your dried foods, oatmeal, grits, rice, flour, canned foods if you have to buy that. Some of those cans are a couple of cents to maybe in the dollars. I have not bought food in cans in a really long time, so I don't know what that looks like anymore. It used to be cents into the dollars, but that kind of stuff will add up over time. Then I would also say, once you can get at least a couple of months worth of that under your belt, maybe start pondering hygiene items, whether it's extra soap, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoos, whatever that looks like for your family to keep your body clean, your clothes clean, and then possibly move into some medical supplies that you would need for minor cuts, scrapes, of course, band-aids, cleaning supplies. You could slowly start adding those things. They're not a first in priority, but they are something you should obviously think about and consider. This is something else that I would add. Look at food preservation is not just one realm. There are several different ways. You have, of course, your dried foods. You have like your beans, rice, oats, stuff like that I already mentioned, flours, Then you have freeze-dried foods, which brings a whole different aspect into the game. There are fruits, vegetables. You don't necessarily have to go to companies, y'all. There are places that sell freeze-dried food that you don't have to specifically get online and go to a company. If you find freeze-dried peaches or freeze-dried apples or whatever that looks like in the store, y'all grab a couple of those. A little bit at a time goes a long ways. Also, utilizing freezers and learning the skill to canning. I've had a lot of people tell me they want to learn how to can. Maybe some people are nervous to use a canner. There are so many different wonderful YouTube videos teaching you how to can. I have one on specifically, it is broke down step by step on how to pressure can chicken. Y'all, that chicken can be canned and put in jars on the shelf for a really long time. Find somebody in your community, somebody that you go to church with, somebody that's interested in this homesteading thing that maybe lives in your area. Even if you have to pay them a little fee to come in and teach you a life skill, it is worth it. That allows you to not have all your eggs in one basket, okay? You've got freezer, you've got can, you've got freeze-dried, sealed away in Mylar bags that are waterproof, which we all know can make a huge difference when we're talking about flooding situations, and obviously canned foods as well. And the last thing that I would say really is storing. Don't put all of your food in one place. This is just a tip coming from somebody who has done this a really long time. I do not want to have one room with all of my food. Spread those things out. Think outside the box, if you know what I'm saying. Get creative. If you were to have somebody come into your home and it's obvious that you have food in one place, think about other places, either in your home or outside of your home, that would be good options for food storage as well. So you guys are gonna have to think outside of the box on that one, and I'm gonna leave it at that because we have done things here a little bit differently, and I can't spill all of my beans, obviously, either for security reasons. I'm just telling you to get creative and think outside the box. So with all that being said, I will leave you with this thought. Even though one or two things you think might not add up, you're going to, in months' time, look back and say, yes, indeed, those did add up. It is wise. It is not living in fear. Just like if you knew a storm was going to come, you would go get items to have on hand to prepare yourself for that storm. We currently live in a time where we never know when a storm is going to come through, both physically in the weather and here on land, because our country and our government has gotten way too out of control. They are over-regulating, over-pricing, over everything. They have way overstepped their boundaries a long time ago. And with that, we see in history comes destruction of a country. So unless this thing gets reverted, unless we can turn back, we need to start preparing for what we see coming ahead. It's kind of one of those things where I say, if the meteorologist can tell us a storm is coming and we're going to go out and prepare, wisdom tells us as well, a storm is coming, you need to go out and prepare. It is just the wise thing to do. Now, we're going to pray that it doesn't happen in our lifetime. Maybe the Lord will take us back before we see really bad things, but we're not guaranteed that. And it's always wise to be ready for those things that we can't foresee coming as best we can. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect on this side of heaven. Nothing that we do, no way that we live will ever be perfect. That's why we have to always rely on the Lord and put Him first, but also be wise and smart with the things that He gives us. Guys, that is all for today. I hope that encouraged you and motivate you to think. Sometimes I know people say, I can't do this. Yes, you can. Where there is a will, there is a way. Guys, thank you for watching. God bless and happy homesteading, y'all.